Hello, my stamping friends. Welcome. So glad you are here. What we are going to do today is I'm going to show you how to make this card. It's a thinking of you card. It actually could be a sympathy card. This particular one is. Obviously, you can change up your inner sentiment to whatever need you have. It's very straightforward. There is some embossing. We've got some foil that we're going to use. We're going to do some stamping. I'm going to show you how to use the Stamparatus to get this multiple colored leaf. Yeah, I think it's a really pretty card. It comes together very quickly. And I hope that you will stick around till the end. I've got some tips for you on using the embossing folder and as I said, on stamping that with multiple colors. Here are the measurements for the cards. My name is Linda Edwards. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you see anything that you like to purchase, you can do that. Click on the Shop Now button on the video, or you can find me at craftyhairanddesigns.stampinup.net. This card uses the Soft Seedlings Stamp set. It's a cling stamp set. Really beautiful fonts, very simple, very elegant, but I think it's really beautiful. This one spoke to me right away when I opened the catalog. So to get started, let me put that over there. We'll start with, we actually did this one as a card in one of my classes, and we did a Stamp-a-Stack. So we did a whole series of these cards, and I'm going to show you how to make it now if you did not get a chance to attend the class. So the card base is Crumb Cake. It's cut at 8.5 by 5.5, and it is scored at 4.25 inches. Of course, the first thing I always like to do is to go ahead and fold and burnish that card and set it aside. I will have all these measurements on the description of the video, so if you miss it, don't fret. You could certainly always take a little screenshot or take a picture with your phone as we go through it. So the next layer is So Saffron. I have 2 of them, and they're cut at 5.25 by 4. It's just a nice layering piece, and I realized that is not true. So let's cross that baby out, and I will correct that. We are not cutting that one into pieces. We are keeping 2 So Saffron. All right, we do have basic white, and we have one that's cut at 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. It's going to layer onto the So Saffron with just a nice thin layer there. And then the second one is actually cut the same size, 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And then you're going to go ahead and cut 1 inch off. So this is where you're cutting off. But you're basically, it's 5, so you end up with 2 pieces. One is 5 1/8 by 2 7/8, and one is 5 1/8 by 1 inch. And then you need a small piece for the sentiment. And this one is cut 3 inches by 1 inch. And then I've got this beautiful copper foil. And, you know, for fall, I just love the copper. So we've got one that's cut 3 inches by 3/4 inch. That's going to be for the sentiment layering. And then I got one that's 5 1/8 inches long, and it's about 1/4 inch wide. So that will get you started. If you're not watching live, you can certainly stop and start the video and at your leisure. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move this out of the way so that we can get going. So let's see. I think what I want to do is all the bits and pieces. I usually stamp first, so let's go ahead and do that. So we've got a thicker, wider basic white, and then there's the narrower one. So we're going to take the narrow one, and we're going to go ahead and stamp the leaf. And I'm using the Stamparatus for this. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, but I feel like this is just one technique that you can use. So go ahead and put the basic white piece way up in the corner. I've got it all set up already, and I'm going to use sponge daubers for this one. And sponge daubers come in a package of 5, and I've got 3 here that I've got labeled. I've used them multiple times, and I just kind of do red, green, and it's orange, but our yellow is really, I'm going to use Mango Melody. So it's not really technically orange, but it's close. So our colors are Mango Melody, Mary Merlot, and Granny Apple Green are the colors that we're going to use for our leaf. And obviously you can do whatever you want. I'm going to start with the, let me see, I can see that. I'm starting with the Granny Apple Green, and I'm just tapping my sponge dauber in the ink. You could, if you didn't want to do it that way, you could use a block to get some ink on your pad and then stamp it that way. But this works for me because I'm not worried about the ink cross contaminating my ink pad. And all I'm doing is, you can see, make sure I'm in the color or in the area here, is I'm just taking the green and I'm doing it right on the leaf. So there's a couple different ways to do this. I can do it and then stamp each individually. You know, I could go ahead and stamp this and then go on to the other colors. But for today, I'm going to just go ahead and do all the ink at once. I'm kind of doing the center of the leaf, and then I'm going to move that aside, and then I'm going to bring in the Mango Melody. It's a really pretty orangey yellow that I just really, really love. So I'm going to go ahead and just stamp. Now I'm doing the little seedlings on the side, and then I'm going to kind of go a little further along outside of that green. All right. And then last, I'm going to bring in the Mary Merlot and do the same thing around the edges. So as you can imagine, each time you do this, you're going to get a different effect. No two will be the same, and you can kind of play around with them as well. So let's see how we're doing, and we can always come back and let's move that, give it a little back rub. Oh, and that's not dark enough at all. So the wonderful thing about the Stamparatus, of course, is that I can come in and add some more color to make it as dark as I would like. So bring in the yellow. That's the one that I think is not dark enough. The green actually looks fine to me. What do you think? But I feel like this Mango Melody just didn't really pop. All right, let's try that again. And let's see where we're at. Oh, that's much better. And now I can see here where I kind of didn't get close enough to the edge. So I am going to go ahead. It's reversed. I was going to do that one. That one's fine. It's this one, which is here. So I'm going to kind of bring it a little bit closer. Get some more of that yellow in there. And I do think I want just a little more green, just kind of in the center. And yeah, maybe a little more red as well. So you just kind of play around. Just make sure that you don't get your sponge daubers in the wrong ink color. You do have to kind of pay attention. Oh, there we go. I'm much happier with that. What do you think? Isn't that pretty? Just so elegant. So elegant. And you know, I am going to try something different. All right. I'm going to try and get my yellow a little bit higher up in that red. I think it's going to create like an orange, more of an orange. Let's see how that does. So like I said, each time could be a little bit different, and you just kind of keep playing with it. Oh yeah, there we go. I like that much better. Okay, so that is for the outside. Now there is only one, there's a little bit more stamping, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I am actually doing the sentiment on the inside with the Stamparatus as well. So I'm gonna take this plate off, and I'm going to bring in my other plate. And I have this set up already. And I've got my sentiment, you can see, with Heartfelt Sympathy. So this is the larger piece of white cardstock. And I am going to stamp it with, move this down a little bit, with the Mary Merlot. So once again, I can stamp it, give it a little back rub, more, so I get it good and straight. And the reason I'm using the Stamparatus for this is because my stamp is crooked. It's not straight, so it's really hard to get a really good straight image. So I played around with it and made sure that it was straight for multiple cards. And that's, of course, the best way to stamp multiple cards. Okay, so that stamping is done. Now I do have some stamping. Actually, I'm going to do a little bit more on the inside and on my envelope. So I'm going to bring in a little piece of scrap paper so that I can do the last bit of stamping. So this is that little winged element, and then the other element that I'm using is from, oh gosh, what's the name of this stamp set? I have to think about that for a minute. I'm going to use Sahara Sand with this, and it's just a little bit of a blotch, and I'm going to add, just thought it added some interest to the card, to the little corner. So I'm kind of turning it, make sure you can see this, kind of turning it on its side, and I think, yeah, I want to stamp off. Like that. There we go. And then this is the envelope. Make sure I don't stamp it upside down. I have been known to do that. I'm going to stamp off and then stamp that. Okay. And then the seedling from the maple tree. I'm going to also use the Mango Melody for that. And I'm kind of bringing, see the little stem? I'm kind of bringing that in between those two blotches there. And then the same thing here, just kind of bringing it in between. So it's cute, isn't it? All right. That, let's see, is not quite all of our stamping. We do have to stamp our sentiment as well. So the sentiment is this, on this white piece, and it's thinking of you is the sentiment, and this is from the Soft Seedlings stamp set. And I'm going to double check and just see, is this going to stamp straight for me? And yeah, it is. It stamps straight. And it's a little bit, as you can see, it's got a lot of variation in it, so it's not really going to be critical if it's off a little bit. And I'm going to stamp it right in the middle of this piece of paper. This, I think it's 1 by 3. There we go. Yes. Okay. So that's all of our stamping. Move these out of the way so that I don't get stuff all over my my card. And then we're going to bring in, set all this aside, and I'm going to bring in my cut and emboss machine, because we are going to emboss this piece with the Leaf Fall Embossing Folder. So this is a wonderful 3D embossing folder, and you can see that it kind of gives you the image on an angle, and I want this to be, I want it the entire way. I want it embossing on the whole strip. So, you can lay it by the side. I really liked the way this, I think you can see that, this little area here looks. So I'm gonna line it up in the embossing folder that way. So because it's a 3D embossing folder, we just are gonna use the plate number 4 and then the base plate. So this is just the single base plate. I have plate number 4 here. I'm gonna line this up, and I'm just kind of putting it in. I want that one flower to be right at the top. So I'm kind of lining that up. There we go. And then you always put the folded end in the embossing, Stampin' Cut and emboss machine first. Sorry, I'm gonna have to, should have turned that around so I didn't hit my camera. All right, move that aside. Take that apart. And there we go. You know, that texture is very subtle, but it's just really adds a lot of dimension and interest to the card. All right, so we are almost ready to put everything together. The last thing we need to do is I'm bringing in this lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch, and I'm going to use this side to embellish, to cut my scrap. So this is nice and snug. If it's not, just make sure you double check the back to see that it's lined up and it's all centered, and to make sure that the paper is all the way to the edge. So there, that edge. And then I'm also going to do the same thing with the copper. And this one's a little bit smaller and it doesn't quite fit in the center. So what I'm gonna do is I slide it all the way in there, and then I'm gonna use my, take your pick tool, and I'm just making sure that that's pushed all the way up there so there's not a gap. And then what I'm looking for is, can you see how this is not quite straight? So I'm gonna move it around a little bit. I'm holding this with my left hand under here. I'm gonna just slide that over just a smidge because I want it to be centered. And press. There we go. Okay. So that is for my sentiment. And then the last thing I need to do is I'm going to punch a hole. Now, if you have a hole punch, which I do, I have a small hole punch, but if you don't, you know, the one I have is just an office supply hole punch, but I think it's 1/8 of an inch. If you don't have one, you can easily use your pad here and take your pick tool. I'm going to do it this way. And I'm just kind of looking for the center, and I'm going to just poke that in there. See how I got a nice hole there? And then this one also, I'm going to press a little hole. It doesn't really matter that they're exact because I'm going to offset them anyway. There we go. And now just make sure I can just kind of turn it to make sure that it's a big enough hole for them. And as you see, I want to offset it. So first thing I'm going to do is take a glue dot and go ahead and put that there. And then I'm going to put that in there. It's a little awkward. There we go. I just kind of want to make sure they're close together. Okay. But I am, like I said, I'm just kind of offsetting that a little bit. So then when I go ahead and take my my linen thread to go through there, now you could just tie it in a bow and, you know, with the glue dot right on top of it. But I am going to go ahead and try to get this in there. There we go. I should have my glasses on. You can't see that I don't have them on, but I don't. Oh, and you see what happened? I didn't get all of the threads. Let's see if I can pull them through here. Ah, nope. Nope. All right, I'm going to give it one more try, and if not, you know what's going to happen. I'm going to just go ahead and, here, let's try it this way. I'm folding it in half and see if I can get that through there. Yeah, there we go. That did the trick. All right. So now I'm going to bring this over and just tie a little bow right on the front there. And then that'll be ready to attach to the front of our card. So all of our pieces now are done. And we can begin assembling. Okay, now the easy part. So here's our card base. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and attach the So Saffron on the outside and the inside. So you use your adhesive of choice. Let me know, are you a green glue crafter or a snail crafter? Well, we don't call it snail anymore, do we? We call it Stampin' Seal. I think it depends for me. I do prefer the green glue. I live in Georgia. It's kind of humid here, and sometimes the snail was definitely a problem. It was our humidity just, that snail just did not hold for me. All right, now I'm on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and attach the inside of the card. So, but I do know, I have friends and some of my, stampers that just for whatever reason, that green glue just gives them trouble. They just can't seem to, it just gets everywhere. So I think it just depends on, what works for you. So I'm going to go ahead. So now I've got these 4 pieces that we're going to assemble in the front. So I'm going to attach this one first. And I guess it doesn't really matter whether you do the stamped image or the embossed image first, but I'm lining it up on evenly on the 3 sides, the top, the right, and the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to take and attach this one the same way, top, right, and bottom. And I'm going to, the top left and bottom. I'm going to line those up, and there will be a little bit of a gap. Well, or not. It doesn't really matter because we are going to cover that with, I'm going to bring it up just a little. There we go. We're going to cover that line there with the copper. Now this is where you do have to be careful, because if you get green glue on the front of that foil, it smears, it makes a mess. So if you are not comfortable with the green glue, then I would suggest go ahead and maybe use something else. And I'm gonna go ahead and use this to hold it so that I don't accidentally get glue on my foil. And I'm just lining that up. There we go. Okay, so the last thing I need are some dimensionals. Isn't this wonderful? It just, like I said, it comes together very easily, and I'm going to just put that right there. So let's put a couple of dimensionals on there. I think 2 is plenty. And I don't know about you, but it seems like I've had the need for a lot of sympathy cards these days. So I felt like this one is elegant, could be used for a man or a woman, and very thoughtful. But as I said, you can do thinking of you and just use a different sentiment, and it doesn't have to be a sympathy card. Could be a birthday, could be anything you want. So I hope you like that. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It helps other people to find me, helps me in my business, and I appreciate that. And as I said, my name is Linda Edwards. I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator with Crafty Here and Designs is the name of my little company. And my goal is to help you unleash your inner creativity. If you'd like to see more of the cards that I make, I like to share them regularly on YouTube and also on Facebook. And I'm also on Instagram at Crafty Here and Designs. So have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you for joining me. Bye.